Hello, I'm just going to go through this Oracle Think Tank promo that they revealed recently. I didn't really have as much time to record, especially during daytime. Didn't really want to record during the evening because it'd just be a bit darker. And so I just kind of thought maybe I'd just let it sink in case I maybe think of something. But, you know, just my headspace just wasn't really there anyway to kind of go that deep into this in the first place. I've not tested the card still. So this new promo, Alliance Angel, one of the many, well, upcoming promos at least, because it's still one of the early waves. It's one of these grade 1 promos that are used for defending, so V format is getting a bit of a defense creep, which is helpful because of Gold Paladins and Aggro Force just being kind of next level aggro from what I've heard. Well, I've experienced Aggro Force, I've not experienced Gold's aggro because I've not actually played V since. Although I've got a deck actually, I might just do a deck profile on before I turn it back into a premium deck, which I lent out. And we got second place at Tri format with that. So this promo, we didn't really expect Oracle Think Tank to be early, I don't think, because people noticed the early waves were following the similar pattern to the previous wave of promos, which is the grade 2, where they the Oracle Think Tank promo came way later. So we got it early this time. They determined, I guess, that it's the right one to get earlier as well. So this card says you may discard this as a heal for the cost of calling a G-Guard. Completely useless in V format. It's a rare case of them just acknowledging anything from the old era Vanguard, because, and not just that, but they actually made it redundant too, which is very different, unprecedented in the kind of V era card design. D series, they've always had, like, they've had Stride deck sets, they've had even the word Stride mechanic acknowledged in, for example, D set 13, with all those grade 4s that you can drop for Stride and things. So it's a bit more expected in D, but in V it's the first time. We never see any of the keywords get acknowledged. You can maybe stretch as far as say lock or bind, but there's hardly anything, really. It's just very fundamental game rule stuff, that's it. So very yeah, very different direction, but the actual skill itself, so just bear in mind that when you're playing in premium, you're now going to have access to 8 enablers for G Guardian. So that means that now the 4 G Guard condition, you actually have to look out a bit more than you did before, because it's very possible that you can just end up being a bit clumsy and then realize, oh wait, I've already been through all my G Guards, or oh wait, I can't G Guard anymore. So people may have to think about that a bit more carefully now when they're playing. But good thing is the other skill, which isn't a G-Guarding skill, but it's a defensive skill, can still be used even if you run out of G-Guards, provided that you have a heal in your hand or drop to bind. And if you're playing counter-charge heals, then they're going to bind themselves. So you're going to have less reason to use counter-charge heals, unfortunately. The ones that they just reissued in History Collection, because it would clash with these grade 1 promos. So there's now more and more incentive with grade 3 heals right now because of that. And in fact, if any sort of card actually has gone a bit better, it would be main phase counter charge, or like any sort of ability that counter charges. Even like counter charge PGs I think are a lot better now. But the main phase counter charge I was kind of thinking of in my head was Code Magus, and shame for Link Joker, because Link Joker, they don't have Zinc anymore, got banned. But any of those kind of cards, like Counter Charge 2, are a lot more tastier than they used to be because of stuff like this. But the skill is when placed on guard from hand, so you can't use something like GB2 of Gurgler or anything like that. You have to actually have it in your hand and call it. No intercept either. And you remove a heal from your hand or drop, which I just mentioned. You have to be very careful with that. It makes grade 3 heals actually better, because right now with V format there's been less defense available, because you're taking out 20k shield heals for 50k shield heals, and because of that, when you go into the later game, when you're no longer grade 2 or less, then all those kind of bigger numbers start to matter more, and then you find, oh, I might be short by 5k, and you lose the game. So it does make a bit of a difference, because now you've actually got something to scale later game with high defense, because you've got your grade 3s which you can use early game, but if you still have them later, then you can just guard them like normal, but then know that you have other big shields to follow up with later. But once you remove the heal, just continue on the rest of the skill, the actual skill itself. So, and you may notice I've mentioned 5 or more cards as the, you can even read it like on the screen here. 5 or more cards, it's like the Oracle keyword, just like Divine Yachimatico, except there's no actual printed keyword, so you can't use any of the search abilities or that specify oracles like Amino Oshiho, or you can't discard it for tank mode interrupt. You can't activate Precious Ophidian with it as your Vanguard for the turn 1. You can't do anything like that. So that's kind of a downside. Last time we had the Oracle keyword card was actually banned Ichikishima from years back, but we've not had anything since then. Rescue have had a bunch of pseudo rescue cards, which again don't have rescue in their texts. So it's another kind of, yeah, it's another funny kind of 5 or more in hand. So it's clearly a throwback to the Susanoo type of ODT, just like in Silver Dust Blaze. But the one thing that isn't a throwback, which we'll get to in a sec, is to do with the revealing part. So there's no revealing going on. So there's no combo with Ichikishima Amaterasu, the Goddess Sun Amaterasu, unfortunately, with this one. So V format, you still can't do it, unfortunately. It's still just a premium exclusive ability, but skill, look at the top of the card of your deck, put it on top of bottom of your deck, and it gets 20k shield, so it's 30k shield just like Octogonal Magus, except you didn't have to Count Blast 1 to draw in the first place. So it's just straight up 30k shield for free. And then, although you bind a heal, and then you can Count Blast 1 if you put it on the bottom of your deck to give your Vanguard 5k power until the end of the turn. So it's a way to kind of counter multi-attack decks as well. It's like a half a trigger or half a V trigger even, and it's just more defense. You can now deal with big attacks as well from strong stuff like Pursuit Assault, I think it was, for example, anything that just gains a lot of power and then restands or whatever. You've got more ways of dealing with it. In Premium, it's easier now to deal with Crest decks as well, like Chrono Jet with Crest, for example, where those decks just run you over, especially going second, and they ride Mazer Gear. You've now got more ways of surviving that because you're not relying on just a few cards, and you're still dropping 1 card every time to guard one of these attacks, so that helps a lot too. But not just that, you can also manipulate your deck as well, of course, to try and get damage triggers, which helps a lot more on top of that as well. And otherwise, you got a lot of like balancing out going on. So you've got now 8 enablers of G Guardians. You just got to think about the order, because you got to make sure you got your heals used up first. You can even drop your grade 3 heals early, a lot more easily than before, and know that you've got access to G Guardians later. So there's just been like less and less kind of worry about clutching onto grade 3 heals in OTT lately, which is great as well. Just bear in mind also that you do have to be careful. You play like a rush deck that doesn't really draw back when placing unit, like for example V Susanoo. You're less likely to have the Oracle keyword condition, so just be mindful of that. You may find that you've actually just gotten yourself to 4 less in hand because of that play. Magus is going to be great, or Cone Magus specifically, the card, which can be used technically in any OTT deck. Very good in Susanoo as well, but Cone Magus will always help with countercharging to maintain these CB1 costs for both the G-Guard and this as well. So it's already quite tight counterblasting in OTT when you're going defensive. And of course you're also doing your Ichikishima draw too, your Susanoo draws as well, if you're playing the Strider. Or if you're playing Witches, you've got your Yo-Yo, or if you're playing Magus, which luckily you have Code Magus, but you still have to draw into it. You've got like Facili, Rectangle, as well as your Strides as well. So yeah, it's there's a lot of questions about Count Blast management, but cards like Code Magus are going to be a lot more valuable with these new cards coming out as well. And obviously decking out is going to be a lot more easier, but luckily what else is also coming out soon in a few weeks time, or actually I think it's next week from when I record this, because I think our sneak preview got delayed, I believe. Oh no, because sorry, no, it's 2 weeks from the release of the main set, so sneak preview is actually a month earlier, I believe. Yeah, soon Raziel will be legal, so even if you're worried about deck out, you can still get around that problem by just going to Raziel and then make your whole deck crits and still have a 6 damage heal ability. So a lot of interesting stuff is going on, and you may remember if you have played the game a lot longer, there used to be decks that played 16 crit because they didn't see as much value in heals. This is before G Guardians came out, but once G Guardians came out, it became rare to see people play 16 crits. There were a few decks I've seen, but very a lot less common. It was something that doesn't really cross people's mind anymore to play heals. Like 16 crit just lost so much popularity, but this is going to bring it back possibly, because you don't actually, I say that in the case of premium form, not in V, because in V this is useless if you don't have heals and drop. But in the case of premium, because you can use this as the cost of calling a G guard, you can still go for it. So 16 crit ODT or something, always a thing that could be considered as well. Yeah, it's looking very interesting, that's for sure. And grade 1's very easy to fit in OTT, because the grade 2s are the best cards, generally speaking. The grade 1s, there's not really that many amazing grade 1s in V series of OTT. So I mean, there are decent ones, but it's like they're not like you know, absolute must play cards. It's the grade 2s that I find to be very strong, to be honest. So I will definitely be able to fit this easily into my decks. In premium, I've actually made some lists that play Honley. I would probably kick Honley out, and to be honest, Honley it hasn't really been that good in this format. There's a lot of matchups where you don't need it. Like you've got D Police, you've got decks like Mega Conley, you've got Link Joker. Like this is a lot of the common decks that you're finding now. Like no one's really attacking like 10 times Harley. Like there's not many matchups like that. Everyone's just too prepared for Honley as well. So there is not quite as much value. It's really just a 10k shield in a lot of games. But there are other cards that they've made since then, besides these promos, of course, which are also contributing to alternate ways of defending without playing these bricks. So, like for example, there is a grade 2, only grade 1 actually, from Lyrical Monster, which have the same ability. This one here. So this card, when it's called, you can basically bounce one of your opponent's front row rear guards. So if you use Pumo or use Citron, the G guard Citron, then you can basically what you do is you just bounce the front row and you can stop some attack chains from going off. Very disruptive. And when you're G guarding, you're still able to just target the other rear guard that your opponent has, so you can actually kind of ping 2 attacks in one go. So a very strong card as well. There's just so much stuff now that just counters aggro. Actually, even Nubatama is a popular deck right now as well, which I'm seeing more and more. So none of these decks really do proper multi-attack. So it's definitely going to make it a lot easier to justify kicking Honley out to play these promos if you're already running Honley in your decks. And I would, yeah, just maybe consider countercharging when you're going through your lists. See if you can manage your counter blasts better, if you should play some countercharge engines, which I'll try to avoid the countercharge heals possibly. But another thing I really like is that grade 3 heals, when you're just going for the stride cost of history collection, are a lot more easy now to justify, because you know that you've got a lot more of these in your deck. So that's also very helpful as well to know, and that means you can actually be a bit more take a bit more risks. So that means you can actually afford to, say for example you wanted to discard Goddess of the Sun Amaterasu like a Susanna deck, right? And you know you've got a grade 3 heal in your hand, but you're thinking, oh, I want to discard the Goddess of the Sun Amaterasu so I can do the fake strike cost. Well, it doesn't matter anymore, because you know it's going to be easy to find G guards, and so you can even just go crazy on Goddess of the Sun Amaterasu and then just keep the other card in your hand just in case. So you've got a bit more to play with, a lot more wiggle room, knowing that you can then find defenses again later. If, you know, for the games where you actually need defenses later rather than in that current moment when you're doing plays. So it's all this kind of like small little things it just affects. A lot of nuance really when it comes to these new promos. And yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I think OTT might have a harder time ending games if everyone's playing this, especially Bowser's a Trifle, because Trifle can be guarded against with these grade 1s. So I mean, if your opponent uses this on you, 30k shield, it just blankets the entire tag. It's just like Oracle Think Tank in G era all over again, where they had G Guardians introduced, which made a grade 0 that Silent Tom could prevent from being used as a guard, suddenly turned into a one card drop to stop Silent Tom. So it's yeah, it's going to be one of those things where there might end up being some defense, too much defense creep for some decks to be, a lot of decks I think, to be able to handle. It will make games grindier, and I think there's also an issue where maybe some decks just don't have enough CB. And there are protect decks, so I think troubles with protect decks is that if they're the ones that can hit hard in the late game, like Grand Blue is a good example of one. A Grand Blue is definitely going to benefit a lot. I think Shahara is probably going to get quite wounded from it because it's soul charging to deck out. ODT is going to have the same problem as well, where it just relies too much on just drawing cards and Battle Sisters and the sort. Like Battle Sisters just draws a lot of cards, and then you just get close to deck out, and that's going to maybe be a bit of a problem, possibly. Again, untested. I've not tried any of this stuff, but I can just imagine, based on memory, decks like Shahara and ODT, which, you know, they benefit from the Protect Gift marker, so they could play a long game, especially with these promos around. But then they'll just have deck out as a main issue, which we've seen in Premium, where a bit too much defense creep, or like, you know, these Elementary Sanctitude mechanics just being thrown in and then just suddenly blocking a turn, or damage check over triggers, and then suddenly your opponent is capable of deck out, just like that. Because that's actually why we have these finishes in the first place, is because they were trying to make it so that decks didn't just casually walk into deck out. So it's a very weird kind of balance that goes on, but I think a deck like Grand Blue is probably going to be safer, if anything, because they will scale in the late game as well. They'll always be able to kind of keep battering, and they've got the new promo as well, which helps. So quite a bit of push while having defense, which I think Grand Blue might actually be one of the bigger winners. But that's more of just speculation. Be interesting to see what would happen later down the line if Grand Blue in fact does end up benefiting when he gets his promo and ends up being ahead of the curve from other decks in terms of being able to defend while actually pushing past these Grade 1 promos. But yeah, I don't know how it's going to affect, like, Aquaforce and Golds. They can now be blanketed more easily with these as well, these 1-card drops, but obviously they have a lot of attacks, so there's still that. But you're giving your Vanguard 5k, which could also help you as well on top of that, because that's also been an issue as well. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for my thoughts on this. Let me know how you're planning to use this, or if you've seen any like interesting combos around it or anything. And yeah, I guess I'll see you guys around next time. Bye.